Okay, well, today is Memorial Day, a time to remember those who gave their lives in the service of our nation. However, for many citizens, this is just another day off work, a day to fire up the barbecue or head north to cooler weather. They give no thought to why they get another holiday. I commend all of you here today who took the time to honor the true purpose of this day. While we are honoring our war dead, we should also take time to recognize their fellow veterans who made lesser sacrifices in defense of our nation. If not now, when? We've lost all of our veterans up through World War I. Our few remaining World War II veterans are in their 90s. The Korean War vets aren't far behind. According to the VFW, less than 1/3 of the Vietnam War veterans are still living, the youngest being about 70 years old. This holiday, originally known as Decoration Day, was instituted in 1868 when General Logan, the commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, the Veterans Organization for Civil War Veterans, directed all GAR posts to decorate the graves of the war dead with fresh spring flowers on 30th of May. Similar observances had already begun in the South, where both Confederate and Union graves were decorated, usually in April. Confederate Memorial Day is still celebrated in the South. Our solemn commemoration, began by the veterans themselves, has continued to this day, and since World War I has come to honor the war dead of all 81 of America's major wars and lesser conflicts. A total of 354,664 combat casualties, and an estimated 40,031 missing in action. So what's the impact of these numbers? Well, consider the following. Out of that 81, I'm going to take 10. The Revolutionary War, which lasted for 6 years. The honor flight is going over. That's pretty deep. Anyways, I started to say the Revolutionary War, 6 years, we had 8,000 combat dead, 23,000 disease deaths. The Civil War, 214,938 combat dead, 450,000 disease deaths. The Spanish-American War, 385 combat dead, 2,061 disease deaths. World War II, 291,577 combat dead, 113,842 disease and other deaths. The Korean War, 33,686 combat dead, 2,830 disease and other. Vietnam War, 47,434 combat dead, 10,786 disease and other. And they're still putting names on the wall in Washington. The Gulf War, 149 combat deaths, 145 disease and other. The Afghanistan War, our longest war, 20 years, 1,910 combat deaths and 415 other. The total from 1775 to 2019, we had 666,441 combat deaths, 673,929 disease and other. Please bear in mind that these are not just abstract numbers. They're human lives sacrificed in the service of our country. As you can see from these statistics, through World War I, disease and other non-combat deaths far exceeded the combat deaths. Since World War II, great advances in personal protective equipment, medical science, and rapid evacuation capabilities have greatly reduced both direct combat and non-combat deaths. Sadly, as we know, many wounded who have returned in recent conflicts are badly damaged, both physically and mentally, as we see from PTSD, TBI, burn pit diseases, and unfortunately, suicides. Traumatic injury to limbs have resulted in amputation rates said to be close to those of the Civil War. Head injuries have resulted in a whole new medical treatment field for traumatic brain injury being developed. More needs to be done for our veterans' healthcare system. Why are we remembering? Far too often, the nation takes for granted the freedoms we all enjoy. Not since World War II has the citizenry of the entire nation been called on to actively become involved in our collective defense through any personal sustained sacrifices. What our troops are doing overseas in several conflict zones does not affect us here at home, except for the occasional reminder on the 5 o'clock news. Out of sight, out of mind. It's a sad fact that today only 1% of our national population is involved in our collective defense in the armed forces. During the draft era, 1940 to 1973, people from all walks of life and all classes of society were called on to serve. Today, in the all-volunteer force era, most come from the lower middle class or the working poor for economic reasons. The World War II rate of service was approximately 23% of the draft age population. But this does not account for the millions of citizens, both men and women, who went to work in the defense industries to support the war effort, the Rosies. During the Vietnam War, approximately 9.7% of that generation served in Vietnam. Now, because of societal change and congressional authorization, more and more women are going into direct combat units. You've seen at least one young lady who won the Silver Star in Iraq. And there'll be more. Lots of them going through jump school and ranger school and all that other stuff that used to be the hallowed ground of guys. Give it up, guys. It's theirs now. Okay, today is America's remembering those men and women who made the greatest sacrifice possible. Selflessly giving their lives in our defense. This remembrance spans 81 major wars and lesser conflicts in which our nation has been involved. Everything from the Revolutionary War, the Banana Wars, World Wars I and II, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Lebanon twice, the Gulf War, Kosovo, Haiti, and elsewhere. Other American service members have lost their lives in classified actions, which will remain nameless for a long time because of national security restrictions. No American death is too insignificant to remember when that life was lost at the behest of society. Our soldiers, Marines, sailors, Coast Guardsmen, airmen, and now Space Force guardians, GIs all, do not choose where they serve or what foreign policy they will enforce. Their world is dictatorial so that ours may remain democratic. They serve as a tool of our civil society and must always be responsive to our civil leadership. The death of a paratrooper in Grenada or a Marine in Beirut is every bit as important as the death of a Union infantryman at Gettysburg, an airman shot down over Germany, or a sailor blown up in Havana Harbor on the USS Maine. Such distinctions are irrelevant. We need to recognize today that most of our national political leadership, those making the decisions to commit our military to various conflicts, have themselves never served in the military. Veterans in Congress are but a small minority. America's collective consciousness demands that all citizens be aware of and recall on special occasions the sacrifice and deaths of their fellow citizens in wartime and other conflicts. By honoring the nation's war dead, we preserve the memory of our service and sacrifice, of their service and sacrifice, which preserved our nation and our democratic form of government over the last 247 years. We need to be aware that foreign leaders such as King George III, Jefferson Davis, Kaiser Wilhelm, Adolf Hitler, Emperor Hirohito, Kim Il-sung, and Osama bin Laden would have changed our situation if they could. As we hear on the news every day about Russia's actions in Ukraine and China's aggressive actions toward Taiwan and in the South China Sea, they will not be the last to challenge us. Thank you.